Hey, what's going on, everybody? On today's show, AI humanoid robots are getting smarter, it seems, by the day. And the question is, are we ready? Do we know where we're going to start seeing them? Is it going to be in the house? Is it going to be in the factories? Are we going to start to see lots of humanoid robots working together in teams? There are so many companies out there, more than you probably know exist. Yes, we know about the Tesla Optimus because it gets a lot of screen time. It gets a lot of the news cycle, but there are plenty of other companies, some of them out of China, that are doing pretty amazing things when it comes to the most advanced humanoid robots. I promise we're going to show you some stuff today that you did not know existed. But that's the topic of the show today, is just to get caught up on what is going on with these AI robots, specifically the humanoid, because there's so many others out there, like the Boston Dynamics dog and things like that. But we're going to sort of focus, I think, more of our time on the humanoids. So with me today for the Daily AI Show, and by the way, today is March 4th, 2025. With me today, we have Jumi, Beth, Andy, Carl, and I am Brian. And yeah, this is one that we've been looking forward to for a while, right, guys? And I think it's gotten bumped because of some other things in the news cycle that we wanted to make sure we got to last week with the announcements from Claude 3.7 as well as GPT 4.5. But we're here. It's happening. It's time to talk about robots. And yes, I am sure at some point we'll talk about the possibilities of them taking out Carl's recycling, because it would not be the Daily AI Show unless we tackled that hard-hitting question of like, when is that going to happen? So yeah, there's a lot. I did a lot of research on this. I'm sure you guys did too. I found some companies that I did not know existed, such as Sanctuary, which is a Canadian company. Didn't know that one existed before. A couple out of China and a whole bunch more. So I have a lot on my screen to share as we get through this, but I don't know. Let me kick it over to, I don't know. How about you, Carl? Let me kick it over to you, since I was just joking about, the recycling. But all kidding aside on this, there seems to be a couple of different paths here, right? We're seeing general purpose robots start to emerge, where we're seeing humanoid robots where the intent is absolutely to be in the home. It's about maneuvering through a house with thousands of different variables. Carl, your house and my house are probably drastically different, despite the fact that we would both say these are our homes. How a robot would have to work through that space, whether there's pets, whether there's babies crawling on the floor, and all the other variables that could possibly happen in a home. There's those robots. And then obviously we're seeing robots that are really sort of focused on factory, tough spaces, jobs that humans no longer want to do because they're dangerous or boring or repetitive or 1,000 other reasons. So there's a lot of different areas here, but like, I don't know, what as you see it, like, what are you most excited about, I guess, or just generally, where do you see us right now when you sort of research these humanoid robots?
I think for overall, there's a lot of like demos and things happening in I guess I've been more focused on in robots in China rather than ones in the United States, more so um, not necessarily autonomous, but more just controlled. And I think that's kind of where, from a consumer perspective, I think we're still a couple years out. I know people are like, well, maybe next year, like, yeah, but general purpose, probably not. And there's still a lot to do. You, the demos are cool, but I can't remember which show it was that we talked about. Why are you building robots that are human looking? Like, wouldn't you build robots specifically for the task you're trying to do to make it the most optimal it should be? Because from a consumer perspective, yes, but if you're going to do it from a business perspective, whether it's in a factory or the specific tasks that is repetitive, then you'd obviously make a robot that was the most efficient to do that thing rather than try to do something that mimics people. Because right now it's like mostly people can outdo robots. Not like, if you try to compare it from an AI perspective to a human perspective and you put that in the robot perspective, I'm thinking we're what, GPT 1, 2, maybe, from a robot perspective. Like, any of us or anybody in the chat can outdo any robot in generally form.
I don't know. Is that
Sure,
true? Would you say that's true?
I say I can outdo any robot from a from if we took a look at from a pure, that's why I mean, if you try to do it for one specific task, maybe you can outdo me. But if you want to say it's a human to human, any human would outdo any robot.
So
Like,
you're
I don't
saying
think
saying like general intelligence, as we might talk about, or
I'm not
generative
talking
AI
intelligence, actually doing, like, actually
tasks, right?
moving. Yes, that's
But
I'm
not
entirely
specifically trained. You mean I meant general in the terms of like what the robot's doing. You're saying I can outperform a robot if we're just
if
talking
you
about general human tasks.
general human tasks,
Yeah,
I
okay.
would say all of us can pretty much outperform any robot. I'm not talking intelligence, I'm talking just like pure movement to do everyday things.
I think
Maybe
I think you might be right on a like zero shot attempt,
yes,
right?
literally that's what
And
I'm
a
talking
human
about.
might actually learn quicker to, reproduce a task that's just been shown to it at that moment. But you give a robot enough time, like just tens of seconds, to practice that. And I think the robots that we'll see demonstrations of now, like including the Kung Fu robot, which has made a
Right.
lot of news in the last little while, they're going to be able to reproduce with excellent fluidity and dexterousness. They're going to be able to reproduce that better than a human very, very quickly. I don't mean in terms of months. I'm talking about right now, the robots that are being demonstrated, but not necessarily applied in real world environments. They can do far more than I think the typical human can.
Okay, I'm going to push back on that then. So why aren't they being deployed? If you say it's true that any robot can be trained within seconds on any given task, then wouldn't that be, I'm going to take this stand just for this case on it, wouldn't you deploy these to do multifunction tasks then, if then the argument is, okay, take a look at this, in 10 seconds you can do it, 10 seconds you can do it, wouldn't you just train it all once and then you have a fully functioning, capable of anything we can do?
So
Yeah,
we're
there are.
missing no, we're
Go ahead.
missing two of the parameters, right? Or we're missing two relevant parameters. One is, can it do it for the same cost as a human right now? And unlike AI, which is like at a point where potentially it can do what a human can do for a less cost, robots I don't think can. Robots are still like not at economies of scale. And the second thing is, even if it can do what humans can do, is it also going to do something that a human would definitely not do based on its reason? And I think robots aren't there yet either.
Yeah, I think there are safety, energy, and regulatory obstacles to widespread deployment of the current capabilities of robots. And I think for good reason, because I'm personally quite concerned about the safety issues. There's a news story just from this week about a demonstration in China at a festival where a robot kind of went rogue and appeared to attempt to headbutt an old lady, So we don't really have good control over the robots yet. And not that it was doing something, nefarious. It may just have lost control. And many of the robots that we see in public spaces are being remote controlled as well. And there's a big question about whether truly autonomous robots are currently programmed well enough to do these things. So I'm not saying that right now we have robots in production that can do what I just described in seconds. But I'm saying I'm not concerned about robots being limited in their capacity that way over the course of the next years, with China leading the way for mass-produced robots that will find their way into the public domain.
Yeah, and we can talk about China first. There's two main companies there. I'll say main. There's Unitree Robotics, and then the other one is
Ubtech?
Ubitech.
Ubitech,
Yeah, Ubitech Robots. So Ubitech Robots, I'll pull them up on screen here, is a S1 is their one. And then Unitree actually has two different main ones, the G1 and the H1. One of those is the Kung Fu robot that you were just referring to. And we can look at those. So let's just take a look really quick at, let's start with China, because they are, for I don't say leading. They certainly seem to be farther along because of either what they're allowed to do, how they're allowed to allow,
Yeah, it's a cultural
robots
thing.
in the public and things like that. There's videos of these robots with a handler, and we don't know how much of it is like remote controlled or whatever, but there's definitely, you can go on YouTube right now and see videos of robots out and about as it is in public. How much of that is controlled or not controlled, I don't know. Is somebody's finger on the kill switch to, shut it down immediately? I don't know. But here, let's talk with I have UB Tech up here.
While you're showing that, I'm just going to make a quick point about China, which is ahead in EV production and in industrial robots. That country moves very, very quickly in product and use case expansion. Why? Because China follows a kind of a laissez-faire natural selection approach. And for emerging technologies, where they take a trial and error thing. Like I don't think the Chinese Communist Party worries too much about losing a little old lady as they move to become the dominant player in the robotics market. And they have many, many willing initial users, like billions, right? Hence, they have an advantage. They have an advantage over the regulatory restrictions that the U.S. manufacturers have, except in certain domains like military and so on, where the full capabilities of robots can be expressed without too much supervision.
Yeah, I agree. So Beth, if you pull up the first one here, I'll show the UB Tech. So basically what we have here is this story came out Monday, so literally yesterday, talking about first humanoid team in car factory. So this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. These humanoid robots are being deployed for wildly different use cases. We've seen the ones in factories and stuff like that, but what's different, I guess, about this one and their Walker S1 robot in the Zeekr EV factory in Chinese port city of Ningbo for multitasking, multi-site operations. And I don't know if we have a video. I'll scroll down again here. But if you look at this screenshot here, it's showing two of these robots. You can get to see what they look like. They appear to be, it's hard to tell, there's not a human next to them, but they appear to be about human height, maybe a little shorter. And the two robots are working together to move something off an automated pallet jack. So I'm not sure there. So let's see if we go down. I don't know. Lots of advertisements. We could probably have to go to their website for that. I'll check that out in a second, see if we can get an actual video of that. But that was the big news that came out of there. And now if we go over to Unitree, then we can kind of see this is the Unitree G1. And I love that it says contact us for the real price. This has been a lot of variance. I've seen the price on this one. It says this robot would be $16,000. However, in multiple different articles I read, claimed it was somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000. Obviously, it's also talking about you have to contact them to see what the actual price is. If you literally wanted to get this robot in the United States, you would pay way more than this because of port fees and imports and stuff like that. So even if it was 16, which you might consider like, hey, that's not bad, I wouldn't mind having this kung fu robot in my house, I have 16K to burn. It's probably more like having 50K to burn in order to actually have one of these robots in the United States. Of course, if you're not in the United States, different scenario. So this is one that made news not too long ago because of it's the cheaper, smaller model. This one is not as tall as a typical human. I don't know if that's fair to say, but it's not. It definitely, when you see it next to humans, it's shorter. It looks like it's in like the 5'1", 5'2" range. It may be a little bit smaller than that. So they're talking about all its different abilities and ranges of motion and how it can help with real world models. And it's like run agent, more flexible. So they're really getting into just how many ranges of motion it has, how many degrees of articulation it has, and things like that. So this one here, you can see some stats on it. Oh, I didn't realize that. Is it just 3-finger or no? It's got a full hand on it. 3-finger force control and dexterous hand. Optional. Oh, optional. If you wanted it to just have 3 with the thumb, which would probably make sense in a lot of use cases. And they talk about 2-hour battery life. Its weight is 35 kilograms. Height, I don't know, Carl, you'd have to help me with this one. 130 centimeters. I don't know what that compares to. Is that 5'1", 5'2"? I don't know. They talk about
Yeah,
the
most of the robots that I sort of charted out here are right at about 5.5 feet tall.
So let's find out really quick what 130 centimeters to inches is 51 inches. So 51 4 feet is 48 inches. So it's 4 feet too. So it's even shorter than I thought it was. On
But
it.
there are humans who are 4 feet too, just to clarify when we
said
say it's
typical.
shorter
I
than a
know.
human. Okay.
I know. I said average, Beth, because I didn't want to get into that. I hear you. You're right. There's plenty of people who are actually 4'2". But generally speaking is what I was trying to say. But maybe there's more 4'2" people than I know that are full grown adults. I don't know. And then there's also the G1 here. So this is a different. I'm sorry that we just looked at G1. There's the H1, which is much more expensive. And we were just compared their pricing on their page. One was 16,000. This one is 90,000. It is taller. It's showing it here without hands, but I think I've also seen it with hands. Unitree's first general purpose humanoid robot. So going back to what you were talking about, Carl, about it being general purpose, the preview half a year achievement. This one is 180 centimeters. What was the last one? 130, I think. So 180 centimeters. Let me do the fast math here. 180. That is 70 inches tall. And let's see, does it have a larger battery? I'm trying to look and see what the comparison is here. But this was the first one they had out that I remember. And then they made the shorter G1 one, which was supposedly less expensive. And this is the one that I've seen out in the videos where people have shown it out and about with public. And I've also seen ones where they've shown the G1 as well. So two different companies, certainly not the only companies in China that are producing robots. And if we go down to the bottom of the page here, you can see that they don't only, in fact, for at least Unitree, they don't just build, humanoid robots. They have ones that look much more like, what is the Boston Dynamics bot called? What's its name?
Well, they
Anybody?
refer to this model as dogs, right? So this is the
Yeah,
I
I
don't
can't.
know. Is it a
One that looks like this. I just can't think of what its name. It has a name, but anyway, I can't think of what it's. Rex. I can't remember. But regardless, they make other robots here. So clearly, they're not only a humanoid. They are a robot company that has obviously moved into the humanoid space. I don't know how long they've been doing it. I will tell you sort of a funny thing here, guys. I won't bring it up on screen, but in researching this show today, I landed on this website and it was like, it wasn't robots.com, but it was something like that. I was like, oh, this is going to be great because it has a whole bunch of different varieties of it. And man, that is a rabbit hole you don't want to go down when you start seeing all the history and variations of humanoid robots with there was one with an Einstein face on it. There was ones that had really creepy doll eyes. There was ones that I thought, wow, there's a lot more here than it makes the morning news in terms of what people are building. I don't know how old some of those were or not, but it was an interesting website nonetheless. Okay, so that's obviously what's going on in China. I know I want to share what's going on with Clone because that's the one I shared in our Slack channel that I was like, well, now I'm creeped out. So we can certainly talk about that one too.
So I think when you share that, we need to have a little warning. Like if you have children in your immediate vicinity or you're particularly sensitive, you might want to close your eyes and ears and come back in 20 seconds or whatever.
Clone's doing stuff. I will say they're the ones that are doing stuff completely different than anything else you see out there. So maybe let's talk more. We'll hold on to that. We'll keep that as it's coming because these other robots, the Optimus, the Boston Dynamics ones, the other companies, Sanctuary, Atlas, they all
Figure.
that's Boston. I think Atlas
Figure needs to get mentioned in that list.
Figure too. Yeah, I'm sorry. They're on here too. Figures is Helix, right? Is that theirs?
Yep. Yes.
And okay, let me pull this up on the screen because I actually use this as the joke in the newsletter. And I don't know, I don't get feedback necessarily from the newsletter other than I liked it or I don't like it. But I will tell you what made me laugh about this. And you can see the ketchup is on it. Now there's two robots working together from Figure. And they put this out maybe a week ago. And I actually clipped a little part of it. And it's this part coming up right here where one of the robots has the fridge open. It picks up the ketchup and puts the ketchup in the fridge. Now, this is funny to me from my family because growing up, we always kept ketchup, like the Heinz ketchup that you see there, in the pantry. Always, right? It's how I grew up. My brother grew up, got married his wife, and his wife is like, "What are you doing?" It goes in the fridge, right? And so now it's been this funny years-long debate about where does open ketchup go in the house. And so when I saw this, I was like, debate settled, man. Figure the robots have decided the ketchup definitely goes and needs to be refrigerated in the fridge. End of discussion. The robots have figured this out. And that was my joke. I don't know how many people got that or not, or how many people argue at home about where does ketchup go. You could tell us in the comments, by the way, what side is it, refrigerated open ketchup or not refrigerated open ketchup? But that was one of the things that made me laugh about this video. It was like the only thing I could really focus on here. But Figure's doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah, so Figure is the company that announced about a month ago that within 30 days they were going to, reveal something that was really compelling. And what they revealed is their platform called Helix, which replaced their collaboration with OpenAI. And what Helix is a generalist vision language action model. And so the idea of what Helix is as an advance in robotics and robotics training is sort of in an ideal world, you would be able to tell a robot to do something that would just do it. And that's Helix's objective. Its platform is designed to bridge a gap between vision and language processing. So if you say something, now you're talking about an AI that's got to interpret what you said. And there's a certain component of Helix that does that piece of it. And then it has to translate what you said into review of what the visual field presents, and then take action. So the vision language action model, it has a vision where the sensors are seeing everything that's in front of it. It gets instruction via a natural language interface, and then it takes action based on the instructions and what it sees. Now, there's a bunch of different chips that are involved in that whole process, by the way. And I just wanted to quickly recite what the chip specialization is in robotics for humanoid form. So there's 4 key types of chips to achieve complex movements, like Carl's worried that, humans can only perform, but I'm convinced that the chips are going to quickly advance and get us to the complex movements and intelligent interactions. The main control chip that's sort of coordinating everything. There's sensor chips like the vision. There's motor drive chips and communications chips. So there's specialization in the chips. It's not just a simple AI GPU that's running those things. There's going to be more and more specialization all the way up to and including application-specific integrated circuits that are much faster than a general purpose processor like a TPU or a GPU. And those things are going to be coordinated in a way that will allow, as you see in Boston Dynamics capabilities, in now the Unitree robots, which recently, by the way, performed a front flip, which is a very complex maneuver, and so on. The chips and this vision language action model approach that is a different kind of AI, in effect, a coordinated sort of a mixture of experts kind of approach, specialized chips, specialized language programming, and the vision sensor accommodation. All those things are going to really work together. And that's sort of the frontier of what's happening in robotics right now.
And you brought up the one that does the front flip. That's Engine AI, and that is another Chinese company. So thank you, Andy, because I forgot I even had that on the screen. If anybody was here, we'll show it really quick. It'll take 2 seconds. This is the robot doing a front flip, if anybody doesn't see it. And they talk about how much harder, obviously, just like it would be for a human to do a front flip over a back flip, because you can't push off the legs to generate the power to go backwards. So ask any gymnast, like my daughter did gymnastics for years, doing front flips drastically harder than doing back flips. Oh, good. It was even slow motion. Even better. All right, we'll look at it one more time. So what I love about it is it throws the arms 360 in order to get a lot of momentum, and which I think is awesome. Obviously, a human can't do that, but who cares? It's still super, super cool to see. So yeah, this is Engine AI. I don't know the Chinese. There's a Chinese name that's not Engine AI. But regardless, yeah, that's another one. So good call out on that one, Andy, because that one, this just came out, 7 days ago. Yeah, like a lot of this stuff we're talking about, guys, today, I'm so almost glad. I mean, sometimes these things happen with this show. I'm glad this show got delayed. We would have missed three of the 9 humanoid robot stories we would have missed in the last 7 days. Like, it's crazy. So I'm sure a week from now, there's going to be 3 more. And we're going to be like, oh, we could have put that on the show. So we'll do that on our 2-week recaps when they come up, because that's always a perfect time to do that. Okay, so we have other robots to talk about. We could talk about with Boston Dynamics, which we talked about before on the show. We could talk about Tesla. So we have the Atlas robot from Boston Dynamics, who we've seen working together. If you remember a couple weeks, month ago, and I'll pull it up on screen so you can see what this is robotsguide.com. If you want to go see all those weird creepy ones, it's robotsguide.com. I'm just going to pull up this page because it shows you what the Boston Dynamics one looks like. This is called Atlas, and it says Atlas is a fully electric humanoid robot. Unlike previous generations of the robot, the version doesn't rely on hydraulic actuators and is lighter and more compact. Is also being stronger, more dexterous, capable of dynamic motions. This is the one, if you guys remember, we talked about it on the show because we were talking about how creepy it is, how it gets up off the floor. You guys remember that from like a couple months ago, and it just spins the legs, and then it does that very weird Jimmy like creepy movie move where it starts going in the opposite direction, and about 2 steps in, it spins the torso and starts going in that direction. And we were all talking about at the time, going like, yeah, no, that's a creepy way to get off a floor. And it's also a creepy way for a robot to start coming at you, is if it starts walking towards you backwards and just spins its upper half and keeps coming at you. So that was some stuff we saw, but they were demonstrating obviously all the actuators and things that Atlas can do. And if you do remember, the one before this from Boston Dynamics has been retired. It was much beefier. It had all the hydraulics and it had a huge backpack on it. But that was the one you would see be super dexterous, and they would have like they would have the simulated like construction zones where it was picking up large, like let's say bags of cement or whatever, and carrying them up. It was showing how it could move through space. I mean, Atlas is probably, if I had to guess, half the weight and half the size, and still almost as capable of it. So, obviously Boston Dynamics has been in this industry for a really, really long time. I think it's Spot. Spot's the name of the dog. That was going to drive me nuts to the end of the show. Spot, the dog.
Absolutely. So one of the I'm trying to figure out what the collaborative co-robots. That's one of the pieces, the coordination that like you can create robots that are designed to coordinate, to come together to make something happen, Brian. And what you just said about putting them in so that they're taking over a larger workspace. But part of that is if they have the cobot feature,
Mhm.
that then it's like something can turn on, and all I'm coming up with is the word swarm. So if your particular nightmares are about swarming robots, sorry, but
Yeah.
but basically the idea that the robot posse becomes aware of where all the other robot posses are, right? So
Mhm.
you can move from being an autonomous one robot to a collective robot coordination. And I think that's both really interesting, and also when we talk about robots and warfare, that's of course a great advantage in that, and really bad for humans, I think.
There, but also swarms there's a lot of positives from swarms. I know that sounds like, wait, what? But I mean, look, yes, I talk about firefighting because that's what I used to do, but police work, I think exactly the same. Yes, I'm
Ooh,
sure there's
yeah,
negatives. There's negatives. I get it.
true.
People will be like, hell no. The police aren't going to have swarming robots, but there's a lot of reasons for good law-abiding citizens. While you might be in favor of that, number one, de-escalation of scenes. Number two, severely dangerous scenes for humans to be in, obviously, where you might really prefer 15 or 20 coordinated robots handling a scene that couldn't otherwise be done safely by humans. Obviously, in firefighting, I 100% believe that the days of, I don't know if it's my lifetime, but the days of seeing humans go into burning buildings are numbered. They're numbered. Why would we continue to send human firefighters into burning buildings that can collapse if we ultimately have a robot that can handle the exact same thing? Not only same thing, let's be honest, drastically better. Because if I was in a scene, I didn't have all like these super high-tech heads-up displays. I'm not even kidding when I say when you're in a burning building, if you can see your hand this far away from your face, you're lucky. It's not the movies. It's not, oh, everything's burning around and there's the person dead in the corner, the person that I need to in the corner. It's literally by feel. It's a very, very, very weird situation. You might as well have a blindfold on. Robots don't necessarily have to have that. They can have LiDAR and radar and heat sensors, and they can be totally blind in a burning house and still, because of heat sensors, be able to pick out where the human is trapped, hiding. A lot of times we'd have people who run the closets, these kind of things. And so I can see a lot of advantages of where we have AI robots where, I mean, again, why would you send humans into burning buildings if there's just no longer a need to do that?
So collaborative robots, cobots, have been renamed in the chat. So we just need to give Jude naming credit. From now on, they will be robots. But as someone observed, they fist bump just a little too much.
That would be hilarious to see a bunch of robots and then to see the humans be like, could you get back to the task? And they take just a little too long high-fiving and congratulating themselves on whatever they did. I kind of in my head envision the Dude Perfect version of the bots where they're running around and celebrating. You're like, guys, it's not okay, can we just get back to what we're supposed to be doing? And they're still running around celebrating whatever the one thing they did collaboratively together in a factory somewhere. Some owner of a factory is like, yeah, I mean, we love the bots, but if I'm going to be honest, they celebrate way too much. These robots are way too excited. We're losing productivity by the day. All right, so we've talked about Atlas, we've talked about Helix, which is figure. We've talked about Unitree. We've talked about, let's see, who else haven't we mentioned yet? Sanctuary. Do people even know about Sanctuary? I didn't. I'd never heard of this company before, so that was cool to learn about. So I'll pull that up on screen. And then, yes, we will absolutely talk about Clone. This is Sanctuary AI. When I did the Perplexity search, I believe they are a Canadian company. They really, really focus. You can see here on the screen, they're doing like super close-ups of it, of what it's working. They really, really seem to focus on the dexterity of the hands and the grippers on the hands. It says machines that work and think like people. Sanctuary AI is on a mission to create and deploy millions of industrial-grade humanoid robots to help address growing labor challenges. So, and the rest of the website does definitely focus on that. So again, this is back in the area of work that humans no longer want to do. So enter in whatever you think that is, and you're probably right. But obviously dangerous would be one of them. But boring, super boring, repetitive tasks would also be ones. Tasks that are prone to injury because they're repetitive and the body only moves. Think of people who are in a factory whose literal job is to just do this all day long because there's no real robot that can handle it. And maybe there's some other human elements to it as far as like assessing what's coming down the delivery, system inside a, like an Amazon factory. You can see why there would be value in maybe robots like this that, cut way down on the job injuries, OJIs and things like that. Here's a little better version of it because everything else is sort of super close up. We envision a future where our Phoenix robots are indispensable part of automotive manufacturing and logistics, securing the continued flourishing of our civilization. By the way, anytime you guys see these M dashes down, do you just assume this was written by AI in some way? I can't see past an M dash anymore. If I see an M dash, I just assume I'm like, poor people who are using those in their regular writing and not using a hyphen. But anytime I see this, I just assume this was written by AI.
I love M dashes.
What's that?
No, I love M dashes. I feel like now.
For real?
I totally do. Yes.
Oh, see, I never wrote. It's a different topic, obviously. I never ever wrote with M dashes. I would have just used a hyphen. But they're just known now to be something that, or at least ChatGPT likes to do a lot. So it's like Delve. It's been sort of synonymous now with AI writing. So it's hard for me to see past them. It says we focus on dexterity, tactile feedback, and fine manipulation. It has a strong torso built for industrial grade tasks and can complete tasks quickly and accurately. So this is Sanctuary.
I have some other humanoid robotic companies that we haven't mentioned yet. Let me just rattle through them. In the industrial space, like the one you just showed, there's 2 U.S. companies that are focused on that: Agility Robotics And I don't know much detail about them, but they surface in the research. And Apptronic, and those two companies are focused on industrial robots, but humanoid form factor and relatively autonomous, motivating and moving about. And I mean that motivation, not conscious motivation, but rather just moving the body around. And then they're all focused on a key robotic skill, which is pick and place. And that's what you saw the refrigerator example demonstrating. The robot has to pick the right object and it has to place it in the right position. And those skills can be rapidly advanced. But I really want to jump to some European ones, ones in Scandinavia that are going to be of particular interest to Carl if he returns. 1X Technologies from Norway is focused on the home market. And they're developing a robot that has a knit suit technology that makes it less likely that you're going to run into a very hard metal object that doesn't have any padding on it. So the knit suit technology, which I don't know anything about, but anyway, that's going to enhance human-robot coexistence, reducing injury risks when the robots interact with humans in the home space. And they're focusing on meal preparation and laundry tasks. So that's an interesting one. The other one that's interesting from Europe is PAL Robotics from Spain. And what they're focused on is retail and hospitality. So think retail stores and stocking, and also in hospitality. So in hotels, like I'm thinking, the chambermaids being replaced by the PAL robots. And they're focused on multilingual customer service. They support 12 languages and shelf restocking with a payload of about 25 pounds. They can pick up a 25-pound object and pick and place it somewhere. So those are interesting things. And then I'm just going to quickly mention one other, which is UBTech. We've mentioned them before. This is the Chinese company with the Walker line of robots. They're currently undergoing FAA certification for space-based satellite assembly tasks. And to achieve that, they have vacuum-rated joints. So they have to operate in the vacuum of space, and radiation-hardened sensors. So you can imagine it's not just in the home. These robots are going to go out to space and other difficult environments.
Space robots. I like it. Space bro robots, even better.
Speaking of, this is a good time to say that we're doing another sci-fi show on Friday because this is a really great sci-fi topic as well. Junmi, what are you thinking?
Well, I wanted to kind of bookend a couple of things. Number one, to kind of address Carl's earlier question about why are all of these companies really developing humanoid general general action or general robots as opposed to highly specific robots. We've been doing highly specific robots in the industrial sector. That's what the robot arms are. It can be programmed to put a weld here, screw this in, apply, and combine this kind of thing. We have specific robots in warehouses now. We have entire grid systems where packages are moved through the vast majority of the supply chain of the warehouse. And then in the end, we have the humans there for identification and discernment, right? That's kind of stuff that we were talking about earlier, where people are at the end of routing the package because they can see, oh, this is in the wrong place, or this needs to go here or here, those kinds of things. The general purpose is so that it can fill as many roles. And this is kind of what I think Figure and Tesla are focused on, is the general purpose robot, or the humanoid robot, fulfills various roles. And they believe through their evolution and development that they can fill all of the roles, right? Andy, you just mentioned space robots. Well, if you could take a humanoid robot and just apply the space package to it, then all of those space-based data centers that we're going to have in the future can have a localized robot for maintenance, upgrades, all of those kinds of things, where where SpaceX or whoever can then start updating or just providing supply packages or supply runs to those kinds of places, right? You want a humanoid robot so it can live and exist along with humans. So the cobot, right? If you want a robot in the home, it has to be able to be accepted and adopted by the humans of that household. Also, like you said, Brian, those dangerous situations or dangerous environments, like you were talking about, Andy, that's a key place. But humans still need to have that level of control or adaptability or final say in the loop. And that means humans have to be able to fix it, use it, move it, whatever. And that means a humanoid robot can be put into place to achieve the exact same, dexterity types of functions and things like that. And then, of course, there is the transitional period. And earlier I was reading basically an investment assessment of robot companies and what they have found in terms of research for what they think the adoption cycle is going to be. And they think it's going to be similar to like how early automobiles were adopted, right? They compare that because before people had automobiles, right, didn't know how it was really going to be integrated. We've seen the concept before. We know what a carriage was, right? And those kinds of things. But this is such a leap in the capabilities. It's the same with robots. We've seen robots. We know kind of what they can do. But a humanoid robot, it's like, oh, this can be developed to do everything a human can and be everywhere a human can be. And like with all of our technology and machinery, the more that we make and the more it's adopted, the cheaper it'll become. Some estimates are, after 15 or 20 years, it'll come down to like $10,000. Right now, real costs of robots from the low end to high end is anywhere from $30K to $150K. So, as that progresses, it'll become, less and less expensive and adoption will be increased. But there's that transitional period where, like you said, Brian, all of the jobs that people don't want to do, or all of the jobs that cost so much to maintain for businesses, they're going to be replacing with these robots as they become more and more less expensive, I should say.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know what the numbers are, Jimmy, but OJI, on the job injuries, are massive costs to certain industries, not everywhere. When I worked for between high school and college, I worked for Delta Airlines during the 96 Atlanta Olympics. I worked for Delta. My dad worked for Delta, but I was just like, I was a kid, right before college. And so I worked baggage handling and literally loading bags onto the planes, right? So crawling up underneath the bags. I was 17, 18, whatever I guess I was 18, probably something like that. And even at 18, being more mobile, dexterous and all that, I would often get sent into the smaller spaces because you had guys and women who were working there who were, 30s and 40s and been doing that career their whole life. And they just simply didn't have the range of motion anymore because of that job. So not only was it just like your immediate on the job injuries, they had long lasting repetitive movement type things where they'd been crawling into these spaces for years upon years. And depending on the airline, it's not like the movies. There's not a downstairs on the plane. These are like crawl spaces, and so I would often be tasked, because I was the summer help and I should be, I was often tasked to go do those things. Even with all of that, I got an on-the-job injury during just that summer part, because there was two exact containers, white containers that came up the conveyor belt into the thing. And I reached and grabbed the first one, and they have the weights on them. And I read the weight of the first one. It said 20 pounds or whatever. And I grabbed it and threw it to the side for it to be loaded. There was an identical one behind it. I grabbed it as if it was 20 pounds and it was 120 pounds. Identical case. Just didn't think to read this, young, dumb, and stupid. Didn't think to read the second, thing. And I grabbed it. And of course, it didn't move. I moved and it pulled all sorts of stuff and I pulled muscles and stuff like that. My point is this, like, and that's one silly, like, example of being 18 and going, well, I guess I'll read the labels from now on, but it's just one of those examples of like, well, if we don't have to put humans in that position to not be hurt like that. And not only that, just think about the long-term effects of what it costs insurance to help those people stay healthy long after that job. So there's not only the immediate on the job industry, think about insurance and how much they would prefer that humans not be in this because of the long-term effects of what it might take for somebody with hip replacements and knee replacements and things like that due to being on these jobs 20, 30 years. I mean, firefighters alone, but my father-in-law and mother-in-law were both in the Army. Both of them have knee issues from jumping out of planes. Both of them. My father's had knee and hip and knee replacements because of his time in the Army. So anyway, I know there's a lot of examples like that, but I agree with you. I think like the sooner we can remove humans from dangerous conditions like that, the better. I don't want to take people's jobs, but I do want to protect more people. And if this is a means to that, then I'm fully in support of it.
So I want to address the declining cost of robots. I don't think that it needs to decline much from where the Chinese are setting the standard now for industrial and or humanoid general purpose robots. Because you think about this in comparison to the automotive industry, who thought that we would be able to finance as a family finance a $50,000 or $60,000 car? Well, the robots are going to end up at a lower than $50,000 price point, but you probably won't need one standing by in your living room at all times. So there's already in China, and there will be eventually a rental market and a leasing market for robots, so short and long-term leases for whatever purposes you have. I can think about around the ranch here, the tractor that I rent from a local rental operation that I only need to use for a couple of days. And then otherwise the tractor, just, if I owned one, would just be sitting here waiting for another instance where I need to have that level of lift and mobility, for heavy duty work. I think the same is going to happen with robots, and you'll be able to rent one. In China, you can rent them right now. You can imagine now for gender reveal parties and other events, birthday parties, you can rent a bipedal humanoid robot to appear there, and then that gets into the question of safety, because now you've got a 120-pound object that has lifting capabilities and is a very hard metal thing interacting with children. How do you control that when anybody can go out and rent one, because there is not regulation yet around these things. You can rent one of these things without any protections, and there's no clear legality or legal structure around who's responsible if somebody gets injured by a robot that you don't even own. I just rented it, and now it was on my property. Is my property liability at risk here, and so on? So there's a lot of things to be solved before that happens. But I'm not so concerned about the price obstacle to this. However, it is true, and this is to Carl's early point, that is the actual number of units that will be produced, even though the possible range is in the tens of millions of units, even in the next number of years, is probably be squashed down to the range of about 1 million units making their way into the marketplace, just because there's competition from humans, right? And then there's also specialized robots that are going to make these humanoid robots not quite so appealing, because an automated guided vehicle might suffice on wheels, and or industrial robots that have very limited purpose, like the robotic arms and so on, might be useful in certain contexts, and you don't really need a bipedal humanoid to do it.
If you guys are okay with it, because I know we're getting short on time here, I do want to pull up. I know we've teased it long enough. Let's pull up Clone, because Clone are building robots. Don't look like any other robot out there. So let's look at them because this is something very, very interesting. Let's look at the video that creeped us out, and then let's look at their website. Go ahead, Beth. What?
And we is it? I don't see it's shared yet. I'm joking, but not joking about the warning, the trigger warning. Seriously, I haven't stopped thinking about it.
I still say it's the music. You guys could be the
No, it's
you guys could
definitely
be
the music.
the things. Hopefully this doesn't cause us any demonetization because this is
No.
they used the track from Oppenheimer, but we'll play just a little bit. Hopefully we'll be okay and they don't demonetize our show. It could because it's a track. But we'll play a little bit of it, Jimmy. We won't play too much.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Let's try to keep it down to under 15 seconds.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. This is Clone. We'll show you their website in a second. All right, and then you can pretty much get the gist. Yeah, Gareth is like creepy. Yeah, no kidding. So if you're not watching us and you're listening to us, this looks like a human, a robot head, a very human body. And we'll explain why that's the case with muscles and everything. Who's wearing like a skin tight, almost like you'd see somebody wearing a green suit, but this one's white. But what makes it creepy is that it is hanging from like the ceiling, basically, and it's getting power, an external power source. And not only are they using this really creepy Oppenheimer music, they are also showing it almost like weird leg twitches. It's like twitches, which makes it weird. I know they're trying to show the power of the robot, but it does give it a very creepy look to it. Now, if you go to their website, not nearly as creepy. Okay, not nearly as creepy. Actually, very, very cool. So androids have arrived, reserved one of the first 279 clones ever made in its alpha edition. Now, this is cool what you're seeing on the screen, but what I think is super cool is X-ray mode. So they're talking about their synthetic organ systems. And this is a very cool graphic because I can go left to right on it and I can go top to bottom on it. And it's showing how this robot essentially looks. And if you're looking at this, if you can see this, there is no doubt that this robot is meant to mimic the way a human body is created. In fact, they go on to say that right here: the muscular system, the skeletal system, the nervous system, and the vascular system. They go on to talk about how it only takes a very small pump, a 500-watt electric pump, compact as the human heart, able to pump liquid at 40 SLPMs, volumetric flow rate, and 100 PSI rating. But they go on to say that the only thing that this robot takes is water and power to move. So this robot is very, very different. They have obviously approached building humanoid robots from a not can it do things humans do, but we're going to build it like the human body is built. And they go on to say, like, we don't have time to get into all of this website. It's very fascinating. Go into clonerobotics.com if you have time and just read through this website and see what they're doing. They talk about how they attach tendons to the right position. So it's very much meant to, clone the human body. I'm sure that's where the name comes from. So while the first initial video that they put out, by the way, it wasn't like somebody else put that out. They obviously wanted it to look creepy. They put the music on it. It was their choice. This is a generation, not actually one walking. We haven't seen one walking through space that I'm aware of, but it's a very, very interesting company. And they started with actual just hands. So if we go up here and you look at the hand, it's a very cool look to how the hand moves. And it's like synthetic hands, real. Again, don't have a super whole lot of time, but if you go to their website, you can watch all sorts of videos of just the hand doing very dexterous things such as surgical precision, trigger fingers, using scissors, grasping a tennis ball. And then below that, there's all these different areas at the hand. So I guess they started with the hand, which they say is the most important part of a humanoid robot. And then they moved on to create the rest of it. This is a company to watch in my mind because this robot looks nothing like what the other ones are doing. So I'll be really interested to see where they go from here.
And
yeah, this is definitely an example of the Blade Runner track. So if you're familiar with that movie, Blade Runner, it's all about synths. This is a design along the idea of synthetic humans or synthetic humanoids. So to replicate that functional system. Now, the next steps will be, of course, the interactive layer, how interactive or persona you can create, and then sticking on a more interactable face than what they're currently using. And then you'll have a synthoid. So more to be discussed on the latest sci-fi AI show. I'll leave that there.
Arathod says we got to be careful because these things could be breaking into the houses and stealing your ketchup. And that's true. Listen, and I think Cisco or somebody else said this, much harder to do if it's in the fridge. I'm just going to put it out there. It's much harder to do if it's in the fridge. So you can decide where your ketchup goes. That's a great point to leave on. We'll circle all the way back to the ketchup. Look, hopefully you guys got a lot out of today's conversation. We've been wanting to do this, like I said, for a while. And like next week, we'll have missed something, right? So it's one of those topics, the humanoid robots and AI robotics in general, which we really didn't get into. We stayed in our niche today, that are just really, really fascinating. But of course, there's all other sorts of ways that AI is being implemented into robots that do not look like humans, that are in factories. And Jimmy, you pointed out a whole bunch of those. And honestly, that could be a whole different show because there's all sorts of fascinating things that are happening from digital twin models, what we saw with NVIDIA, how robots are being trained inside of these workhouse factories and warehouses is what I was trying to say. So lots more to come in this area, but hopefully this gets you caught up at least as far as you could on March 4th of 2025. And we will certainly do more as soon as we feel like, hey, there's more to share here. There's more developments, more cool things to come out of it. But you got a lot of companies to follow for now. All right. So that's it for today. Tomorrow will be the news. Maybe we'll have some AI humanoid robot news. You never know. Could happen between today and tomorrow. If there is, we'll catch you all up on that show tomorrow, where we always take a moment each week to pause and look back at our favorite AI news stories from the last week. I promise you're going to learn about one or two of them that you probably didn't know and maybe a whole lot more. So come hang out with us then. And of course, for the rest of the week. That's it for today. Have a great day. Don't forget to go to the website to sign up for the newsletter if you like. Also subscribe, and liking this video goes a very, very long way to us being able to reach more people. So thank you to everybody, and thank you to everybody in the comments today. I think you guys are reaching new levels here. There's got to be well over, 1 to 200 comments in there today, just from today's show. You guys are awesome. That's it. Have a great day. Bye.
Aloha.